did about a little over an hour of meditation. I just one note. I need actually a couple notes. One in particular that I totally forgot to note when I did the video. The video regarding the how do I what how do, well, regarding the what I documented on the beach back on June 4th, 2024, and then there was some more incidents of flat out harassment actually this time, and other little distraction attempts. I think when I was out doing meditation in the park, some more things occurred as well when I renewed my U.S. passport recently. I just thought of it's all finished. I picked it up. It's all done, and I noticed how it seemed to stop when we went back to pick up the passport. It happened again. There's some more things happened that night, April 1st. And then I noticed the next morning, April 2nd, got my passport. And after I picked up my new passport, it didn't seem to happen anymore. But I documented the email from that email from the embassy when they replied with all those Gmail accounts CC'd that they would usually never do. But one thing I totally forgot to talk about on the video is on March 9th when I went in to drop off my passport application, and on March, was it March 9th? Yeah, March 9th. When I actually went in March 9th to drop off the passport application, I already went over the embassy visit. That was one of the first things I talked about on the video, was how efficient the visit was, and how as far as the getting the passport process complete was actually really efficient. It changed slightly from last time, but overall it's still really fast. You might add an extra couple weeks picking it up if you're going to do in-person pickup. But if you're living here, I kind of need to do in-person pickup because I need to maintain my old passport, which I did with the I have to keep the voided out passport. And I got my new passport right there. I have both of them. Yeah, they're both in there. I already, in fact, I need to go transfer my stamps. Want to do that today? Maybe we will. Maybe we'll go ahead and do that today. Transfer stamps. Anyway, I don't know, but so yeah, I talked about that already, but one thing I didn't talk about, and there was another thing I think I didn't mention either. I made some written notes about her. I didn't talk about the girl either, but also when I went into the embassy, there's one thing I totally did not make any notes about it at all. I talked about how they tried to encourage me, to turn in my old passport and mail it back and all that, and I had to just insist a few times that I keep my old passport and pick up the new one in person. And then they did it, no problem. They didn't argue. There's no problem with the embassy inside there. But I noticed in the little, I don't know if it's like a secondary booth or the little booth where people go into to handle other business that's a little more, that might take a little more time. I think notarizing like a child, I don't know, stuff for children and stuff like that. It was stuff that might take a little more time, I noticed. But there was I think the second trip, I saw some other people in there, and they looked like they were handling more official business. But on March 9th, when I went into the embassy, when I was waiting, for my queue to go, it was really quick. But there was some guy with a beard. I barely could see his face the whole time because he kind of had, all I could really see was his side profile when I looked into the booth. But he was in the booth just arguing and not shouting really loud, but definitely raising his voice, to the guy behind the counter inside the embassy. And I totally forgot to talk about this. He was in there just talking about, politics this and politics that. And I don't remember every little thing he said now, but that kind of had me on edge a little bit when I went in there. And I documented the email as well, which could have been a total coincidence, and that totally could have been a mistake, as well, like you said it was, but it just odd if it was. But so there was that guy in the embassy, and I saw that guy again outside. In fact, that was in fact, that was that was several hours later. It wasn't far from the embassy when I saw him outside, so it wasn't too, too uncanny to see him again. But in that city, maybe a little bit, actually. Yeah, that was pretty. I think that might have been that guy might have been related to the little psyop things. That he may or may not have been related to the little psyop things that were going on as well, maybe. But he was in there just like, yeah. But after I dropped off the application, and they told me I have to, once the passport was done, I'd have to make a new appointment to come back and pick it up, which I did. And all that's done. I kept my mouth shut about all this stuff until after I picked it up. But so yeah, I remember it was hours later. After I dropped off the application, went back to the hotel, got my wife. We were out together. You and me were walking. Yeah, wasn't that the day we walked over to Just Mag to see if we could get our ID cards made? Yeah. Huh? Because it's actually like a little a very small U.S. military installation there where you can actually get. Cap cards made and everything. But yeah, we walked over there, and I think we were walking over there, and I saw that same guy kind of laying on the sidewalk with the beard. The same guy that was. Do you remember? I even mentioned it to you. Yeah. I said what's that? Yeah. You remember I was talking to you? Yeah, you do remember that, right?
Yeah.
Because I was telling you, hey, that's the same guy that was in the embassy yelling.
Yeah.
Didn't I? And I remember I turned around and looked back a few times. That was definitely him. That was definitely him. Kind of a short guy. I think it was a reddish color hair, or reddish beard, like red, black. I don't know. But so yeah, there was that guy. I totally forgot to mention, and then also the girl in the park. Well, I talked about the guy on the video that was talking. That same night, March 9th. Was it March 9th? Yeah, that same night when we walked out. Yes, definitely. When that same evening after I had dropped off my passport application, as I talked about on the video already, my wife and I were walking back down. We were going to go to a little shop next door, and then we were going to go to dinner. And there was a guy sitting right outside the lobby at a hotel, at the hotel table, basically the outside lobby, where you can dine outside. And he was sitting there. And he was pretending to be talking on a cell phone as we're walking down the little steps. We were walking slowly down the steps, and all of a sudden he's shouting, saying in a very loud, commanding voice, what was personal information about me, and I'm not going to get into it, but shouting it out, kind of in a blackmailish kind of way, kind of like that. And then I immediately knew what was going on when I heard it, and just continued to walk slow. I glanced at him, saw his face for a second, and we went and did what we had to do, and then we went back. And I already talked about it on the video, but he was staying at the same hotel we were for a couple days at the 12 p.m. And after that first incident, when he was saying my personal information out loud on the phone, that was the night of March 9th, after I dropped off the application for my passport at the embassy. And then he stayed in the hotel, same hotel, and he would always be down there in the lobby, same time we were, and he would be, sitting there. And then multiple other times we walked by him, or he'd be in the lobby, and he would just start mumbling stuff, like some of it sounded like little insults, just mumbling, barely could hear it though, barely audible. And then he'd be sitting there, like, walking around, he'd smirking at us and stuff like that. I remember he had a driver as well that talked to us, and he spoke English. And there was, I think the second day, I think March 10th, the second day, or that night, I think, when we came back from the shop, I saw that same guy again, March 9th. And then I think we were sitting outside, or we were getting ready to eat, getting ready I think we were waiting for a car or something. And then there's this other woman that walks up, didn't look necessarily American, could have been, but she looked Asian. Could have been Asian American, could have been Thai, I don't know. But there was this woman that walked right up next to him, and they definitely weren't together, like staying together, but she definitely knew him, and they made that very clear. They looked at each other, smiled, and then she looked at me and started making faces at me and pointing her finger over at me, and then she walked away and disappeared. And I think it was the next morning after I dropped off my passport. I think it was March 10th or 11th. I think it was March 10th. I'll have to go back and look at my notes. It was either March 10th or 11th. It was at dawn. I went into the park, and I got a couple UFOs on video actually that morning. Oh yeah, should I go back and look real quick? I can refresh my memory here exactly what day it was. But yeah, I remember I walked down to the park at dawn, and that same girl appeared again when I was walking back to the hotel early in the morning, and then she kind of made a face at me and pointed right as she walked by me, going the opposite direction, back towards the park that I was walking away from. And I suspect maybe they were hoping I would follow her or something, because I noticed how when I got back, the police were out there walking around, and each day we were standing there, I remember there was always police out there, like kind of patrolling around. And that same morning, when I saw that girl, I noticed how they both kind of walked in to the hotel lobby and approached and entered the room from two different sides of the building, like they're going to surround somebody kind of thing. You know what I mean? They're both kind of looking towards me too when they did it. They weren't making direct eye contact. I kind of looked up and noticed they were there, but I didn't get nervous about it because I know I don't have anything to hide or anything. So they're just, I think that guy might have been. They might have been with him basically. I won't say any more than that about that, but I think the police basically might have been with him, without saying anything more. See, what day was that? That would have been early March. Here we go. Yeah, March 11th. That was exactly right. I went back and checked my log when I got that on video. In the morning, what time was that? Okay, the time should be in the original video. March 11th. Okay, yeah, between 06:30 and 7. So yeah, that was I was right, March 11th. Well, so that was a couple days later. Yeah, so it was the evening of March 10th, I think, was the first time I saw her. Yes, when I just described when she kind of walked up next to him and they kind of looked at each other and made eye contact like they knew each other, and then she looked at me and started making faces at me, and then then she disappeared. But then I saw her again, March 11th, when I was walking back from the park after getting these on video. And I'll add this to my notes. So and then she was walking back towards me. She was walking like I was walking up the sidewalk, and she was coming towards me and then past me, going the same direction that I had just come from. And then as she did it, just as she passed me, and she had a very recognizable face too. She did she kind of pointed at me and made the same face from the night before, and then continued to walk. And then there was that. I didn't talk about that on the video. I didn't talk about the police either. But yeah, anyway, just those. I think it was just pretty much those two things. And then we went back, and then when we went back for the return trip, there were some more occurrences, particularly the evening of April 1st, including one incident where I was walking over to the 7-Eleven to grab a few things, and someone was like trailing behind me, trying to, like walking behind me like real fast, like they're gonna gain on me kind of thing, but kind of like pretending to gain on me. What I should have did was just start walking slower, because I know they're not gonna do anything. And that in fact, it's basically just psyops, basically just trying to scare me. And I notice how at the same time I've been noticing some more stories on the internet, including from a particular congressman talking about how scary the truth is about UFOs. And one of the same congressmen Republican congressman, that Tim Burchett, I believe, that claimed to be looking for all the answers. I think. Let me make sure. Is that the right name? Tim Burchett? Let me check. Tim Burchett, yeah. Yeah, a lot of stories with his name on it. as well as other stories talking about how I didn't read any of them, but supposedly some sort of UFO research people have a few people had supposedly had been coming up missing. Okay, you know what? I call bullshit on that. Nobody came up missing. They plant those stories out there, I think, because it's psyops. That way, when you come in contact with the people like I did, that way you get scared. So you think, oh no, they're gonna disappear me. No, they're not. They're probably operating with I'm assuming with some guidelines, probably some pretty strict guidelines, and they're probably not allowed to do really much else. Although, they looked like they might have been trying to create a situation where if I had done something stupid like turned around and followed that girl, I imagine they probably had that scenario all planned out. And I made some written notes about that, but I didn't talk about that on the video. And I just also remembered that I forgot to mention that guy. When I walked into the embassy that day, there was that guy in there just going off and he was in the little booth to the right when you walk into the citizen services section. And he was just like being really loud, talking about, all kinds of like politics. And I didn't even get a chance to hear what his problem even was, why he was having, what issue he even had. And I was just, all I wanted to do was get in there, drop off my application successfully and get out and then come back and pick it up. And I did it. But yeah, I forgot to mention that guy. And because several hours later that same day, I saw that same guy from inside the embassy again. As we walked by, he was kind of laying on the sidewalk. And I remember, I did mention that to you, didn't I?
Yeah.
Didn't I say that? That's the same guy from inside the embassy. Yep. So I'm sure, I have a suspicion, that was probably related. And you know what else? That weird email, that was probably part of it too. They worked for one of the agencies, just like I suspected. And, of course, I can't prove any of that. But I do have the incident from the beach, though. I do have some of that on video. And I just wanted to follow up with that note. I don't need to go over the whole story again, but I previously dealt like the incident from the beach. And then there was another, I saw one of those same people again like 5 months later, though, in a different part of the country when he followed me into the bank. But I'm not going to get into the whole story again. But just wanted to follow up with that additional note because I had forgotten to mention the guy inside the embassy and that girl as well. And there's a few other probably little minor details as well, but I got notes of everything. So anyway, that's it. And again, like I said, after I picked up my finished passport, I noticed how the harassment kind of started, kind of stopped. It didn't have no more people talking on phones nearby me or anything like that. But I did notice though when I went down to Limfini Park to do like meditation and try to get some UFOs on video, which I still did anyway. I noticed it seemed like there were some people down there going out of their way to try to distract me. And that's part of what was happening on the beach that day as well, back on June 4th, 2024. So anyway, that's it. I just wanted to follow up with that note.